Hello and welcome back in the Apache pilot seat. This is part 4 of the Apache series, and in part 3 I simply forgot to activate the control indication window. So a lot of you are interested in my control inputs, how many or how hard or how fast, whatever, I try to control, how I interact with the cyclic stick and all the other controls. But before we start with flying, let's go back to the indication or the axis itself. So I strongly suggest you should do some changes on the Apache axis before starting to fly. So let's move to the cyclic axis first. So to get a better control on the cyclic axis, I would use the y-axis to 80%. I do not recommend any curves on the cyclic stick. I do not recommend any curves on the collective stick. And on the tail rotor, that may be different. So let's see the other one. The roll axis, actually the same, 80%, no curves at all. And then the collective, no changes at all on the collective stick. And the pedals, where are the pedals? Here are the pedals. Let's see what we have done on the pedals. So on the pedals, we just reduced the y-axis a little bit, 15% down to 85, which give us enough pedal control in harder maneuvers. And I added a little bit of curve to get a little bit smoother control in the center position, because the helicopter, the tail rotor in the Apache is pretty strong, and most problems during hover or during flight or during approach related to the over controlling on the tail rotor and not on the cyclic stick. Many of you will think it's the problem with the cyclic stick, but actually it is not. It is the tail rotor that produces the problems. So if you do changes accordingly to the mine, or you do some adjustments in accordance to the controls you use, it may be a good idea to do so, and it makes it a lot easier to hover the Apache. So instead of make a repeat of the last video, I do a little bit of basic helicopter training. So I realize a lot of you just starting flying helicopters in DCS because of the Apache. They do not have any helicopter experience before, and to be honest, it's a bad idea to learn helicopter flying in the Apache, but most of you are not really like to learn flying helicopters. They're more interested in the MFDs and the possibilities of the rockets, the electronics, the radar system, the radar guided ones, and all that kind of stuff I do not have any interest in. But I would like to show you a little bit of basic helicopter flying, so you get an idea how to handle and how to get the Apache under control pretty easily. So rule number 1 would be you do it best when you do nothing at all. That sounds strange, but actually that's true, and I will show you why. So let's lose the brakes. And before we take off, we remember our basic flight training, how to get into hover. So to get into hover, we need to raise collective. That increases torque because we know that already. So we push a little bit left pedal before racing collective to counteract the torque, so we do not have to care the tail rotor that much at the beginning. The second point will be we raise collective until the aircraft gets light on the skids. Before that, we can we can get a look if the cyclic stick is centered. We have some markers on the bottom of the cockpit. You see I did already right in the center. That's because of my body memory, my muscle memory, my body memory. I have the same distance to the screen. I have the same distance between the seat and the cyclic stick. The cyclic stick is mounted on the bottom here. There is always the same, and my body remembers the position after a couple of hours flying in the Apache. I do not have to watch down and look down for the center position. I do not need crosshairs in the controls indicator. That gets automatically after a couple of times. So Again, we slowly raise collective and make what it's called the aircraft light on the skids. So we counteract all the weight with the rotor system, and when the aircraft gets light, it will give us a little bit of tendencies moving to the right. So I counteract with a little bit pressure to the left. The most important thing is keep the nose straight with the pedals, eyes outside, at least 10 meters in front of the aircraft. Do not look to the left or to the right, just in front of the aircraft. And as I said, you do it best when you do nothing at all. Just apply a little bit of pressure on the cycling stick to counteract any movement. Do not move the cycling. If you start moving the cycling, you are in trouble. So I did it in the third video. I do it right now. So you have now the control indication visual in front of you. I have the helicopter in a perfect hover, and I take my right hand from the cycling stick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's enough time for a beer, there's enough time for coffee, for some conversation. The helicopter, the Apache, because his main rotor is a gigantic gyro, it's pretty heavy, it will stay in the air without any pilot inputs because of the lack of pilot inputs. If the pilot starts some inputs on any kind of controls, let's say on the tail rotor or on the collective, the aircraft starts shaking. Usually, if you try to hover the Apache, it looks like this. It moves to the left, you control to the right. It moves to the right, you control to the left. It moves backwards, you push forward, and always you do too much. So if you have these kind of hover flying and you find yourself into the same situation, the simple thing is just stop touching the controls. I take the hand off the control and the helicopter will stop shaking. It will start moving simply in one direction. And when we confirm with each other, I confirm if the helicopter is moving left forward, then I try to compensate this movement, not with movement on the cycling, just with pressure on the cycling stick. Don't move the cycling stick too much. You do it best when you do nothing at all. So that makes it pretty easy to hover if you have your body under control and you do not try to influence the aircraft too much. There are 3 ways to hover a helicopter. One is the way I showed you right now. You do nothing at all, which is a pretty economic way to do, because there is no changes of power input. You have a lot of power available for, let's say, some climbs. As less as you do on the controls, as less changes you have in torque, in drag on the rotor system and all that kind of stuff, and you have a lot more power available if needed. There is a second way to hover a helicopter. That is, if you watch the control indicator right now, if you do fast control, if you fast enough to shake the cyclic around, you will hover on one stop, on one place. It will not look like that stable, but you still have a hover within a certain area over the ground. But that's pretty much stressful. It needs a lot of power. It doesn't look right, and it doesn't feel right. If the helicopter starts moving and you do not like it, just stop touching your cyclic and stop moving your cyclic, and the helicopter will get back into a stable hover by himself. The problem is, as always, the pilot. There is only a few percentage, a small percentage of problems related to the aircraft itself. Most of the time, the problem is the pilot. If you're in a nice steady hover and you would like to descend to the ground, just lower the collective just a little bit and let it settle to the ground a little bit. Right pedal is necessary because lowering the collective means less torque, and less torque means less left pedal is required, so we pushed a little bit on the right pedal and then we're back on the ground. So the bad things pilots do, or people do, when they try to learn flying helicopters, they overreact. Most of the problems comes from overreaction, over controlling. Try to reduce your inputs as much as possible, which is not that easy. It takes some time, but if you stay focused in reducing your inputs, you will see you do not get yourself into problems. And the helicopter itself is not interesting in shaking around. Let's say it that way. Okay, let's do another pickup into a hover a little bit faster. Because if you get more experience and you get used to it, you can do anything just a little bit faster. The second main problem in DCS, which is not after over controlling, is everything we do it too fast. Yeah, we try to pick it up pretty fast into a hover. We do not take the time to bring the aircraft under control on the second step, where it's still on the ground but it's light on the skids. In that case, light on the wheels. We do not take the time and we pick up the helicopter, look what's going on, how it's moving, and then try to reduce the movement and bring it under control, which is a bad way to do. You need to have the aircraft under control before it leaves the ground, and then you will get pretty easy into a nice and steady hover. Okay, next stuff, we try to accelerate. We take off from a hover by just applying a little bit cyclic pressure forward. Do not move your cyclic stick, just apply a little bit cyclic pressure when you move over to the runway. Do not really move your cyclic stick. If it speeds up, it needs a little bit more pressure that transitions into small movements of the cyclic stick, but the main thing is take your time. If you need to do things fast, you do it wrong. Yeah. If you have to, if it's not your choice, if you have to do things fast, control actions, you have to do it fast. It was something wrong. There was something wrong before, and you need to correct your wrongdoing with a hard control input, which most of the time, especially in the Apache, brings you into more trouble, and do not eliminates trouble. It brings you into more trouble than before. So nice and easy inputs, and so even in turns, we do not use the pedals in a turn. Just move the cyclic stick to the right for a right turn. You can assist in tight turns. You may assist the helicopter by turning into a tight turn with the tail roller, but usually during flight you do not need the tail roller at all. Same thing to the left. Just move the cyclic stick nice and slow to the left, and the helicopter will fly by himself. So I entered the left bank, the left turn. I take my hand out of the controls. I have the left hand now on my knee. I do nothing on the cyclic, and the Apache will simply turn by himself. It took some time. Go back with my hand on the cyclic, just increase the bank a little bit more, and then I take my hand out of the controls. So the point is, I do not have any spring on my cyclic. I have a helicopter cyclic, and the helicopter cyclic holds its position wherever I take my hand of it. It stays stable in that way. So if you use the trim button, it has the same effect. Just bring it into a bank, push the trim button, let your cyclic stick go back into the center position, and the helicopter will turn and fly around by himself. You do not have to do anything. If you get in trouble, it's the pilot. Always remember, the main problem when flying is the pilot. The same in an aircraft. If you get into trouble, the pilot is the reason. So let's do a little bit more aggressive flying. So and I bring up the HUD display, so I do not have to watch on MFD for the torque indication and airspeed. Makes it a little bit easier for me. Even if I do some aggressive flying or combat style flying, let's assume we're flying along looking for enemies, and now we get fire from the left, so we need to hide somewhere to the right. I do some aggressive maneuvers with the cyclic stick. The preferred one is get into a turn and move the cyclic backwards. That is a kind of a flare situation which builds up some rotor RPM and counteracts the need of power
RPM low.
and Apache tendency to get these low rotor RPM warnings. There was no need for that low rotor RPM warning right now because I was pretty nice and smooth on the controls, but yeah, I hope they will fix that problem. I cannot believe that in real life it is so easy to get out of the usual power settings. You overshoot, you over torque, you bring your over to RPM over the maximum allowed. I'll be a little bit concentrated now on flying because I'm flying low. If it would be so that easy in real life, it would be much more expensive, and all the pilots would lose their licenses. Because anytime you have a master warning light, it will be remembered in the helicopter. And when the technician is looking for the helicopter after your flight, and he's reading out the data cartridge, and they says, oh, a couple of higher rotor RPMs, a couple of red TOT warnings and all that stuff, they have to check all the related components, and that takes a lot of time, that's a lot of work and a lot of effort, which costs a lot of money, and that's all the pilot's fault. So the pilot would be pretty much, yeah, I don't use the word now, if this happened all the time during real life flying, especially in an aircraft which maybe get into battles and it's getting attacked, and you need to get cover as fast as possible. You do not have the time to care a lot of any warning, any kind of warning stuff. Yeah, that will take so much maintenance effort. Actually, nobody would fly an Apache in real life if it's so easy to overshoot any minimums or maximum performance values. So let's do a quick stop, which is accelerating to at least 30-50 knots, and then try to reduce your airspeed before you get close to an obstacle. So lower collective, aft cyclic, left pedal. In that case, coming back with the collective. So this kind of flying was not possible before the update, at least for me. I had a lot of problems. There was a lot of engine warnings, red RPM, low rotor RPM warnings. Torque was always in the red. TOT was at least yellow. Lots of the time in the red. So now it's much better. We do another aggressive stop.
Rotor RPM low.
So there may be still the low rotor RPM, but before the update, this would lead into a crash, for sure. That's the reason why I do not fly the Apache that much before the update. I crashed a lot of time because I used to fly light agile helicopters. For me, it's more fun to fly light and agile helicopters than flying fortresses, flying tanks, which are, because of the weight, of course, not that agile than a smaller one, but it should still have the ability for some hard, close to ground maneuvers without getting into a situation where you're not able to recover, and where you just in combat you made a decision avoiding the incoming rocket and crashing into the trees, or just stay above the trees or behind the trees, using your flares and hope that the rocket will miss you. That would be, in either way, would be a bad situation. So you should be able to do some hard maneuvers to avoid incoming rockets, incoming fire, without crashing, even if there is still warnings and warnings and red lights. It is possible now, which was not possible for me. Let's do a rotor RPM recovery close to the ground by pumping with the collective. Yep, and bring the rotor RPM back without settling to the ground. And just one more last hard maneuver. Let's do an egg turn again, switching off the master warning light. Again, I do not need my right hand on the cycle. The aircraft is flying by himself without using any autopilot and stuff like that. So that's yeah, that's nice, and will be the same in real life for sure. Yeah, because it's not about helicopter style low level fast flying. It's about sneaking towards the target and using the weapon and the electronic stuff. But if you're on the back seat in the helicopter, you feel much better if you have the possibility and the power available to avoid incoming fire. Let's do an egg turn. And again, during all these maneuvers, don't try to do some hard movements on the controls. Just do some small pressures, small movements, especially on the collective during such maneuvers. If you pull the collective fast,
Rotor RPM
you
low.
get low rotor RPM. You just have to be smooth and slow on the collective all the time. You just have to fly like water. It's just if you see the movie Avatar, when the Avatar is walking with water, it's all small, it's smooth movements. They are like the waves on the ocean. Everything is smooth and round. There is no hard angles and stuff like that. Everything is smooth and slow. Even if you do hard maneuvers and fast maneuvers on the controls, you should be nice and slow to do so. Especially in the Apache. So that's the aircraft. Bring the aircraft back to the parking position. Yeah, in fact, you fly an helicopter with forward control, not really with the controls, not really with the cyclic or the collective. You need to think, and most of the time the helicopter should already respond to you thinking and not to hard inputs on the controls. If you need to do some hard inputs, yeah, there may be a good reason for that, but mostly you do something wrong, which requires hard inputs to prevent a wrong course, wrong direction, to crash into an obstacle, crash into the ground during takeoff and landings, especially during landings. So everything has to do nice and slow, and yeah, take your time. And yeah, it's a lot of fun if you master these helicopter parts below 50 knots and below 50 feet. It's a lot of fun to do so, even in the Apache, which is not really his purpose. Yeah, let's say it that way. So thank you very much for watching. Thanks for joining the today. If you do not subscribe to the channel yet, please, that's your chance. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. And I hope we will see you next time again. Bye bye.